There exists a letter aged and yellowed over nearly 5 centuries, locked away deep within the Vatican's secret archives. It is far from ordinary. Its fibers carry ink, tears, and tiny dark stains that, according to experts who examined it in secret, may be traces of human blood. This letter should never have been written. It is the confession of a girl barely 14 years old who, on the night history had promised would crown her as queen, endured an experience so savage that her innocence was obliterated. In its place, a shadow of vengeance was born. Its author was Catherine de' Medici, a young Florentine sent to France as a pawn in a high-stakes game between kingdoms and popes, believing her marriage would open doors to prestige and power. But the bridal chamber held neither love nor ceremony, only a calculated spectacle of degradation. That night, her body was harmed, but what truly suffered was her dignity. Amid hushed laughter and cruel whispers, Catherine felt an invisible thread snapping within her, a link to the innocence of her childhood. When it broke, it left only a tight, unyielding knot of resentment. Records uncovered centuries later reveal that 23 high-ranking nobles observed the night's events from hidden passages. They watched, enthralled by the macabre, unaware that each of them would eventually pay for their morbid curiosity. One by one, the witnesses would die, poisoned by the woman whose tears of blood they had watched flow. Catherine maintained a secret diary, listing each name with meticulous notes on the date, method, and last breaths of each life taken. That wedding night didn't just make her a wife. It forged a strategist of revenge, capable of converting trauma into a weapon of lethal precision. As you listen, a chill may creep down your spine and curiosity stir. A feeling shared by only 1 in 1,000 who dare continue. The others prefer to cling to the official story. To understand the full scope of her tragedy, we must return to October 25th, 1533. The Palace of Marseille sparkled with royal splendor. Outside, music, wine, and celebrations welcomed the union of France and the powerful Medici family. Inside, however, a darker scene was unfolding in secret, one omitted from official chronicles. Documents uncovered centuries later in the Vatican archives reveal a hidden custom known as the purification ceremony. This medieval practice, applied only to foreign brides, was said to cleanse them of impurities deemed foreign to royal blood. Passed down orally among the oldest nobles, it existed only as whispered tradition, never written in registers. Catherine, just 14, walked the stone corridors that night, torchlight flickering over the tapestries. Her silk-gloved hands sweated, and though she held the serene composure taught at St. Lucy's convent, a subtle trembling betrayed her. She believed she would experience the first intimate moments of marriage like any noble wife, but instead, she was about to face a ritual designed to break her entirely. Henry of Orleans, barely 15, awaited her in the bridal chamber. Physically robust but mentally pliable, he was under the complete sway of Diane de Poitiers, his 34-year-old lover. Diana orchestrated every gesture and word of the night, ensuring Catherine's humiliation was absolute. 23 nobles gathered to witness the scene, peering through hidden slits, eyes glinting with morbid anticipation. Some sipped wine slowly, others bet on how long the young Italian would endure. They weren't mere spectators. They were participants in a cruel tradition repeated secretly for generations. What followed defied imagination. The initial gestures were deceptive, a trap to lower her guard. Soon, physical and psychological torment overtook the room. Catherine screamed in Italian, pleading for mercy, but her cries were muffled by laughter echoing through the walls. The trauma was so severe that her delicate eye vessels ruptured, causing a rare hemorrhagic phenomenon. Tears streaked with blood. Henry alternated feigned tenderness with cruelty, deliberately prolonging her agony. 3 times during the early morning, the court physician Anand de Boa revived her after she lost consciousness. Each time she awoke, the shadows of her tormentors seemed to loom closer, vultures over prey. By dawn, the girl who entered the chamber no longer existed. In her place stood someone who memorized every face, every voice, every cruel laugh. Someone who would one day wield that humiliation as a weapon. That grey dawn in Marseille did not bring relief. Catherine de' Medici, the timid Florentine with hopeful dreams, had vanished. In her place was a young woman draped in silks and lace, whose eyes carried a coldness unseen by any court tutor. For days she barely spoke, moving slowly through the palace corridors, observing, listening, committing every detail of those around her to memory. What no one at court understood was that Catherine's silence was not born of fear, but of calculation. Every humiliation she had endured crystallized into a singular purpose: to repay meticulously every ounce of pain inflicted upon her. The education she had received at the convent of St. Lucy now carried a far deeper significance. There she had studied Latin, philosophy, history, and even the secret alchemical arts practiced by her maternal aunt. By the age of 12, she had mastered 5 languages and grasped the intricacies of Europe's political networks far better than many seasoned diplomats. She had also learned the properties of medicinal herbs, infusions and extracts, knowledge that could heal or kill. What had once been scholarly tools had now transformed into instruments of her vengeance, crafted with the patience of a spider spinning a web. Her husband, Henry of Orleans, noticed none of this change. Under Diana de Poitiers' subtle influence, he remained convinced that Catherine was a meek, harmless, and compliant young wife. But Catherine had learned the cardinal rule of survival at court: reveal nothing until the moment is flawless. She smiled when required, bore minor slights without protest, and cultivated strategic alliances, all while secretly keeping the map of her revenge alive in her mind. In the privacy of her chambers, Catherine kept her secret diary, each of the 23 witnesses' names inked with meticulous detail. She noted every gesture, every whispered comment, every hiding place. This was no simple record. It was a ledger of condemnation, a blueprint for justice, meticulously extracted from her memory of horror. To the court, she remained the obedient, adaptable young Florentine who learned to navigate French customs. But inside, her power grew silently, fueled by memory and the certainty that one day the scales would tip in her favor. And when that day came, no pleading or mercy would halt her hand. Years passed before Catherine made her first move on the chessboard of revenge. During this time, she perfected her facade of docility, cultivating the illusion of fragility. Yet each night, she returned to her diary, reviewing names, refining methods, imagining the precise way each life would end. The first target was Jean de Montmorency, a proud courtier who had jokingly wagered on how long the young bride would endure before breaking. Catherine remembered his cruel eyes, the way he sipped wine while watching her torment. And now, years later, that memory would become a sentence. The poison she selected was no ordinary mixture. Hidden in one of the palace's little-used chambers, a room officially reserved for medicinal herbs, she had developed a potent blend of hemlock and mercury, perfected over months. Its effects were horrifyingly precise: violent convulsions, pink foam at the mouth, and hours of agonizing suffering. The punishment mirrored the pain she had endured, every symptom a reflection of her own trauma. Jean de Montmorency was found dead on a cold winter morning, and the court whispered of food poisoning. Only Catherine knew the truth. A small vial of dark red liquid, accompanied by a brief note reminding him of the night he had witnessed, had been the silent messenger of justice. A discreet pattern became her signature. One by one, the witnesses fell, each selected with surgical precision. Yet suspicion never fell upon Catherine. Rumors swirled of an invisible hand orchestrating deaths within the court. But no one guessed that the shadow belonged to the seemingly fragile queen, quietly weaving her web of death while maintaining her public composure. Each act of vengeance was more than mere killing. It was poetic justice, a meticulous recreation of her suffering piece by piece until she reclaimed every fragment of her dignity. Among all the names in her diary, one stood apart: Diane de Poitiers. Diane was not merely a witness, but the mastermind behind Catherine's degradation. She had designed the ritual, trained Henry to enact every gesture with cruel precision, and controlled the young prince's decisions with an iron hand. Overthrowing her would require the patience and cunning of a master strategist. Catherine's approach was subtle, almost imperceptible, a slow, invisible poisoning that would remain undetected while eroding her adversary's strength over months. Small doses of toxins were introduced into Diane's food and drink, minute enough to raise no suspicion. Day by day, Diane felt her vitality wane, her reflexes dull, her memory slip. Meanwhile, Catherine attended every banquet, maintaining a courteous smile as she observed the decline of the woman who had orchestrated her suffering. It became a silent duel, a test of endurance, in which Catherine dictated every move, unseen yet in complete control. To the outside world, Diane remained radiant, the king's favorite, unaware that her brilliance was dimming under a carefully calculated hand. Decades passed, and at last, Diane de Poitiers succumbed at age 66 after drinking wine offered by Catherine herself. For the time, a rudimentary autopsy revealed a slow deterioration of internal organs, a subtle signature of prolonged poisoning. Catherine had replicated in Diane the drawn-out suffering she herself had endured, multiplied over years, achieving not merely death, but vengeance in its most exquisite, patient form. Meanwhile, the rest of her list dwindled. Courtiers who had mocked her endurance, women who had scorned her with venomous words, all received the same dark message. A small glass vial of red liquid, accompanied by a note. It was Catherine's unmistakable mark, a symbol that she neither forgot nor forgave. Rumors began to swirl through the palace corridors. Whispers spoke of a blood curse haunting those who had attended the forbidden ritual. But the truth was far simpler, yet infinitely more terrifying. It was not magic, not a curse. It was the relentless will of a woman who had transformed humiliation into weaponized precision. Her silent campaign spanned years, each death carefully calculated to mirror the suffering she had endured. Each step executed without arousing suspicion. Yet one name always remained, the ultimate key to her plan. Henry II, her husband, the man who had enacted her humiliation while the shadows of 23 witnesses loomed on the walls, was the final piece, the crown jewel of her vengeance. His death could not be hasty or ordinary. It had to be symbolic, a perfect culmination of more than 2 decades of careful plotting. On July 10, 1559, Paris hosted a grand tournament celebrating the peace treaty with Spain. The square overflowed with nobles, ladies, and commoners eager to witness the king's skill in jousting. Confident and proud, Henry accepted a joust with Captain Gabriel de Montgomery. From her royal box, Catherine watched, expression impassive, eyes sharp and calculating, following each movement with a focus only she could comprehend. When the lances met, a fragment pierced Henry's visor, striking his eye. The crowd gasped and doctors rushed to aid him. Yet the king hovered between life and death for 10 agonizing days, plagued by convulsions, fever, and hallucinations. Modern analysis suggests that the wound alone could not account for the prolonged suffering. Studies of the preserved spearhead revealed traces of an unknown organic substance, likely applied beforehand. A toxin designed to intensify his agony. While no one could prove Catherine's involvement, a strange symbol marks Henry's tomb. 3 interconnected circles with a vertical line through them. The same symbol Catherine had etched in her own blood on the bridal chamber wall in 1533. For Catherine, Henry's death was not just revenge, it was liberation. 2 decades of silent retribution had ended. The humiliation of her youth had been transformed into absolute power, and the pain she had suffered became the ultimate instrument of control. No witnesses remained alive to challenge her. No one left to remember the night that had birthed a strategist of vengeance. Yet, Catherine de' Medici's story is only one fragment of a larger, darker tapestry. The Vatican's secret archives, opened after 5 centuries, reveal that she was not alone. Other royal women transformed suffering into deadly power. The lost diaries of Mary Tudor, known as Bloody Mary, hint at secret rituals and torture practices so refined that public executions appeared merciful by comparison. Isabella of Bavaria's coded letters describe alchemical experiments with corrosive and narcotic substances, turning prisoners into subjects of prolonged, agonizing trials. And even Lucrezia Borgia, long famed as a master of poison, left behind formulas of such sophistication that modern science struggles to replicate them. Substances capable of mimicking disease, producing death so subtle, even experienced physicians failed to detect the cause. Each of these women, like Catherine, had been shaped by betrayal, pain, or abuse, and each responded with calculated, often lethal precision. History may have attempted to erase their traces, but their actions are preserved in the hidden corners of European archives, waiting for the bold or the curious to bring them to light. What we shared here is only a glimpse of the secrets hidden behind the velvet drapes and stone walls of medieval royalty. Some truths once uncovered can never be forgotten. Others might be better left buried. Now the question lies with you. Which queen, which historical figure should we investigate next? Your choice will decide which forbidden secret we reveal in the upcoming episode. Because if Catherine's story chilled you, what comes next will make her tale seem like a simple children's story.